She waited until our daughter was about to walk the stage, then leaned in and whispered, "I'm done." No screaming, no scene, just 7 words. And then she walked away. Right there, in front of everyone, parents, classmates, teachers, into the arms of a man half my age. Not during a fight, not in our home. She ended us, during our child's proudest moment. And you know what I did? Nothing. Not because I was weak, but because she had no idea. I'd already seen it coming. This isn't a story about heartbreak. It's a story about quiet justice and a daughter who saw the truth for herself. Welcome back to Betrayal HQ, the place where men speak softly, but never get stepped on again. If you've been betrayed, underestimated, or left behind and told to deal with it, you're not alone. This is where the quiet ones finally get to speak. Subscribe if you've ever kept your pain to yourself. Not because you couldn't speak, but because you were waiting for the right moment to rise. Before that day, my life wasn't flashy, but it was solid. We lived in a quiet corner of town, where the streetlights hummed and every porch had a story. I woke up every morning at 5:30, same alarm, same chipped mug, same black coffee. No cream, no sugar, just like I liked it. While most men were still sleeping, I was already showered, dressed and warming the car to beat traffic. Celeste, she used to pack Ava's lunch when she was in grade school. PB&J with a sticky note that said, "Shine today, baby girl." Back then, we were just trying to keep the lights on and get through each week without something breaking. Still, we laughed. We made spaghetti on Fridays, and when Ava made honor roll, we taped the certificate to the fridge like it was a Grammy. I wasn't a perfect husband, but I showed up. I kept the bills paid, the lawn trimmed, the oil changed. I remember the way Celeste used to lean against the kitchen counter with her tea, telling me about her book club, like it mattered more than anything. And I listened, because when a man loves his family, the little things are big. That morning, graduation day, felt no different. I ironed my shirt twice, cleaned my shoes with an old toothbrush, even changed the memory card in the camera, because I was going to capture a moment I thought would live forever. I just didn't know what kind of memory I was really walking into. Celeste, she used to be the woman who danced barefoot in the kitchen when our favorite song came on. A sharp mind, quick wit. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only one in the room. That was before the distance crept in, quietly, like fog. I remember the first time her smile didn't reach her eyes. We were at Ava's scholarship dinner. Everyone clapped when they called Ava's name. But when I leaned over to say we did good, she just nodded. No kiss, no squeeze of the hand, just blank. Ava, on the other hand, is my heart walking around outside my chest. She's got my stubbornness and Celeste's brain. She once stayed up 3 nights in a row building a science project out of recycled junk, called it Hope in Ruins, took first place. That's the kind of girl she is. The kind that makes a father forget what he sacrificed. My in-laws, they always tolerated me but never embraced me. I was the man who fixed gutters and brought home just enough. Not Ivy League. Not shiny enough for Celeste, according to her mother. You know, she once told Celeste at dinner, loud enough for me to hear, "There's still time to reinvent your life." Celeste didn't correct her. She just sipped her wine. And my coworkers, they joked about how I never joined them for drinks. Darius is a family man, they'd say, and I wore that like a badge until I realized I was the only one who thought that still meant something. Looking back now, it wasn't just what they said, it was what they stopped saying and what I stopped hearing. You want to know what mattered most to me? It wasn't money, wasn't image, wasn't status. It was legacy, not in a loud billboard kind of way, but in the quiet way a man wants to leave something solid behind. So when he's gone, people say, he showed up. I didn't have a father growing up, at least not one who stayed. So every decision I made as a husband, as a father, came from one place. Don't disappear. Be the man who stays. Be the man she can trust to fix the sink. Remember the dates. Hold the umbrella when it rains. What mattered most was Ava looking at me and knowing, that's my dad. The kind of man who may not have the fanciest car in the lot, but who'd drive cross-country in it just to get her home for Christmas. And Celeste, I didn't need fireworks from her. I just wanted respect, to be seen. Not as the man who couldn't keep up, but as the man who'd laid down his ego so she could shine. I wasn't asking for parades, just eye contact at the dinner table. A thank you when I scraped ice off her windshield at 6 a.m. A kiss on the cheek that meant, you still matter here. That's what betrayal does. It doesn't just take the person you love. It shakes the foundation of what you built your life around. And when that foundation cracks, you're not just losing a marriage. You're losing the man you thought you were. At first it was little things. Nothing sharp, nothing loud, just cooler air where warmth used to be. Celeste started turning in early. No kiss goodnight, just the glow of her phone screen facing the wall. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and hear typing. Fast, nervous. I'd ask who it was, and she'd say, just work. Go back to sleep. So I did. The joint account began to shrink faster than usual. Little charges here and there, boutiques I didn't recognize, restaurants I'd never been to. When I asked, she'd say, it's just self-care. You wouldn't understand. And maybe I didn't, so I let it go. Then came the retreats, weekend conferences with no brochures, dead zones with no reception. She'd come back smelling different. New perfume, new attitude, less small talk, more distance. Even Ava noticed. One night she asked, "Is Mom mad at us?" I said no, but I didn't believe it. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from people checking out before they say it out loud. And I started hearing that silence everywhere. In our kitchen, in our bed, even in the way she stirred her coffee. I wasn't ready to call it betrayal. Not yet, but I knew something was slipping through my fingers, and no matter how tight I tried to hold on, she wasn't reaching back anymore. Funny thing about memories. They don't just replay, they compare. I remember the night Celeste and I moved into our first apartment. Tiny place, no AC. We slept on a mattress on the floor, using coats as blankets. She looked at me and said, "We'll laugh about this someday." And we did. There was the time Ava got sick in the middle of the night. Fever spiking, breathing shallow. Celeste sat with her for hours, cold rag on her forehead, humming that same old song she used to sing in the car. And I stood in the hallway, heart pounding, just watching, thinking, this woman, this family, is everything. We didn't have much, but we built moments. Grocery store dances in aisle 7, socks sliding on hardwood floors, dinner burnt because we were too busy laughing over wine. Back then, she used to wait for me by the window when I came home late from work. Sometimes I'd open the door and she'd already be holding out a plate. "Eat first, vent later," she'd say. That version of her. The one who stood by me when I lost my job for 6 weeks and still smiled with toast for dinner. That's the woman I stayed for. That's the life I kept showing up to. So when she started looking through me instead of at me, when she stopped asking how my day was, it didn't feel like falling out of love. It felt like being erased from a story I helped write. Graduation day. The day I thought would feel like winning. Like everything I sacrificed finally had a moment to stand tall and smile back at me. I wore my best shirt, the one Celeste said made me look almost presidential. Camera fully charged. Ava's name printed bold in the program. I even bought flowers, sunflowers, her favorite. We found our seats. I sat between Celeste and Ava's godmother. I remember the sun hitting the stage just right. The speaker droned on, but I didn't care. I was waiting for one moment. Her name, her walk, that proud, teary smile between a father and daughter. And then, just before they called her, Celeste leaned in. No tears, no nervous fidgeting, just calm, cold, like she'd been waiting for this cue. "Once this is over, I'm done." 7 words, and she said them like she was reading a grocery list. Then she smiled, stood up, and walked away. At first I thought maybe she needed a moment. Then I saw him, standing near the aisle exit, younger, clean-cut, university badge still clipped to his belt. And she walked straight into his arms, like it was choreographed, like I wasn't even sitting right there. Nobody said anything, but I felt it. The sideways glances, the lowered voices, my daughter's biggest day, and I became the man they were all whispering about. I didn't follow her, didn't shout, didn't make a scene. Because when betrayal is served with a smile, you don't flip the table, you take notes. I sat in the car for, I don't even know how long. Engine running, radio off, just the ticking of the turn signal, even though I wasn't going anywhere. My hands were on the wheel, but I wasn't driving, wasn't thinking, just breathing, and wondering how the hell we got here. Ava's graduation cap was on the seat next to me. The flowers? Still in the back, untouched, wrapped in plastic. I bought them thinking I'd be handing them over with a proud smile. Instead, I was gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing left I could still hold on to. I didn't cry, didn't curse. I just stared out the windshield, like maybe the road would speak to me. Maybe it would explain how a life built over decades could crack in seconds. You ever sit so still you forget you exist? That was me. In a quiet parking lot behind a school, with a heart that hadn't caught up to the damage yet. And that's the thing. Betrayal doesn't always hit like thunder. Sometimes it seeps into you like cold air. And by the time you feel it in your bones, you're already freezing. You know what hurts most about betrayal? It's not the act. It's what came before it. The things you did for them that they'll never admit out loud. Celeste wasn't always ambitious. Back when Ava was still in diapers, she wanted to go back to school. We had nothing, barely enough for rent, but I picked up a third shift, drove overnight deliveries while Ava slept on the couch beside my old boots. She got her degree, then her master's. Every graduation photo she posted had a long caption about beating the odds, but not once did she mention who held those odds up while she climbed. And her sister? When she racked up credit card debt and was facing eviction, I signed the loan to cover it. Not because I had to, but because family, she said, is what we build together. But the day I asked for help covering Ava's school books, she told me, "You should have planned better." And the affair? This wasn't the first time she slipped away. I forgave her once, years ago. She blamed loneliness. I blamed myself. I even took her out to dinner after, just to remind her what we meant. So no, this wasn't sudden. It was a slow debt I kept paying with loyalty. And when the final bill came due, she walked away like nothing had ever been owed. I didn't lose it when she whispered she was done. I didn't lose it when she walked into his arms like I never existed. Not even when I had to drive home alone with Ava's untouched bouquet in the back seat. But the day I came back to our house and saw a new toothbrush on my bathroom sink, that's when something shifted. The towels were different, his cologne hung in the air like it owned the place. And on the nightstand, a watch, still ticking, still warm. She hadn't just moved on. She had moved him into my space, my bed, the one I built, the one I paid for, the one Ava used to crawl into when thunder scared her at night. There was no note, no warning, just his stuff, where mine used to be. I opened the drawer on my side of the bed. Gone. My cufflinks, my spare key, replaced by his phone charger. And on the dresser was a picture of them, framed, like they'd lived a lifetime together. Like I was the stranger in the house I built from floorboards to ceiling. I didn't yell, didn't break anything. I just stood there and let the fire start behind my eyes. That was the moment, the final straw, the quiet flip inside a man's heart when he realizes he's not welcome in his own home, but not because he failed, because he was erased. I didn't call her, didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations. Instead, I went back to my truck, closed the door, and sat there with both hands resting on my knees. Still, I didn't cry, didn't scream, I just breathed. That's the part no one tells you about a man's breaking point. It's not loud, it's not theatrical, it's precise, surgical. I drove to the bank the next morning. The teller asked how I was doing. I smiled and said, just making some updates. That's all. No trembling hands. No anger in my voice. Just calm, controlled, and final. I printed every transaction for the last 6 months, opened a private account, shifted what was mine back under my name, bit by bit, quietly, legally. Then I found the paperwork, the deed I had adjusted 3 months ago, putting the house in my name after refinancing a loan. I called one person that day, my attorney. We hadn't spoken in a year. He picked up and said, "You finally ready?" I said, "Yeah." "Don't say anything yet. Just listen." From that moment on, I stopped reacting and started documenting, stopped pleading and started building. No social media posts, no messages, just receipts. Because sometimes, the most dangerous man in the room is the one who chooses silence over chaos. Revenge doesn't start with a storm. It begins like a leaky faucet, steady, silent, and ignored until it floods the whole damn house. The first thing I did, stop paying the joint credit card. Not the bills she knew I paid, just the ones she thought I'd never dare to touch. Then I called the insurance company, took her name off the home policy, updated the beneficiary forms, all legal, all above board, just adjusted. Next was the deed. Remember that house she tried to turn into a bed for two? She didn't know I'd already filed the paperwork. She didn't know I'd transferred the title into my name months ago. Quietly, during her second business trip, I didn't change the locks. Not yet. Let her think she still lived in comfort. Let him hang his suit jackets in my closet. Because when it came down, I wanted them to feel the floor vanish beneath their feet. I recorded the calls, not to trap her, just to remember how casually she spoke about starting over, with a man she barely knew, and a home she no longer owned. She thought I was sulking, thought I was weak, but weakness doesn't open new accounts. It doesn't collect receipts in a neat folder labeled closure. Every night she slept in my bed, I slept in power, because nothing is louder than the silence of a man who knows exactly what he's doing, and exactly when he'll do it. There was one night, maybe 2 weeks into it all, I sat on the edge of the bed in that little apartment I'd rented just outside town. Ava was asleep on the couch after a long day of school visits, and I just sat there, staring at the wall. No TV, no music, just me, and the echo of what I was becoming. I asked myself, was this justice, or just a prettier kind of destruction? Because I didn't feel proud. I felt hollow. The house was in my name. The accounts were clean, but the warmth was gone. Maybe I should have walked away. Maybe I should have let them have it all. The furniture, the finances, the story they wanted to sell. Part of me thought, let them live in their illusion. Let the new guy pretend he built that foundation. Let Celeste believe she'd outgrown a man who stayed. But then I'd look at Ava, and I'd remember the man I promised to be. Not just for her, but for me. Because walking away would have been easier, quieter, but it wouldn't have been right. And sometimes doing the right thing hurts more than the betrayal itself. Because it demands you stay true, even when no one is watching. The funny thing about people who betray you, they never think you're paying attention. It happened on a Tuesday. I wasn't looking for it. It just found me. Celeste had posted a photo, some rooftop bar, wine glass in hand. The caption said, "Freedom never looked so good." It got dozens of likes. He commented with a heart. But it wasn't the photo that got me. It was the table. It was the table. That table was mine, from our old patio. The one I sanded, stained, and sealed myself one summer weekend, while she read by the window. That rooftop bar? It wasn't a bar, it was the back deck of my house. My grill still sat in the corner. The string lights, still hanging from nails I drove in with my own hands. She didn't know I still had the security cam on the garage. Didn't know the cloud recording saved audio, not just video. Later that night, I played it back. There they were, her and him, laughing, clinking glasses. And then, she said it. He was never going to do anything. He's too proud, too soft. He'll just fade away. She said it with confidence, like a woman sure she'd already won. Like a woman who never thought the man she erased was listening. That was her mistake. Not the betrayal, not even moving him in. It was thinking I was finished, when I was only just getting started. Justice doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it knocks quietly, in a suit, with a clipboard. The day it happened, I didn't show up. I didn't need to. The man from the courthouse did that for me. At 10:42 a.m., Celeste opened the door wearing one of my old t-shirts. The man handed her an envelope, eviction notice, 2 weeks to vacate. He didn't yell, didn't argue, just stood there as she read the paper in silence. Her new man pacing in the background asking, "What does that mean?" It meant the house was mine, filed months ago, signed, sealed, recorded. That same morning, the bank accounts she thought were still shared declined her card at the grocery store. Twice. She called. I didn't answer. She texted. I didn't read it. There's a silence louder than any scream, and I let her sit in it. By evening, the post stopped. No more rooftop wine, no more soft captions about freedom, just quiet. Ava came home that night, dropped her bag at the door. We sat on the porch without saying much, just two people who survived something. She said, "Thank you for not falling apart." I didn't reply, just looked out at the yard I'd cut for 20 years and smiled. See, justice doesn't always wear armor. Sometimes it wears patience. And when it arrives, it doesn't need to shout. Because the truth, it only needs a moment and the right signature. The house went silent after that. No footsteps, no perfume trails, no laughter that didn't belong to me. Celeste didn't call again, not directly. She sent messages through people, mutual friends, even her sister. They all said the same thing. She didn't think you'd go that far. But I didn't go far. I went exactly where I was pushed. Her new man, he disappeared within a week. Guess rooftop wine tastes different when the lights go off. Last I heard, she was staying with her cousin across town. No more framed photos. No more freedom speeches. Her mother, the same woman who once told her she could do better than me, sent me a text that just said, "I didn't know." I left it on read. And Ava, she started smiling again. Real smiles, not the polite ones she wore at the ceremony. We talk more now, deeper. She doesn't ask about her mother much. When she does, I keep it simple. Some people choose noise. We chose peace. But I'll never forget the last time I saw Celeste. She came to pick up a box from the porch. Didn't knock, didn't speak, just stared at the door like it owed her something. And for a split second our eyes met. There was no scream, no tears, just that look. The one people wear when they realize they bet everything and lost to the man they thought was too soft to fight back. I'm not the same man who sat in that crowd on graduation day, buttoned up, hopeful, blind. That man thought love alone was enough. He thought showing up, working hard, and keeping quiet would build a fortress no storm could touch. But storms don't knock. They tear through when you least expect them. I used to be softer, not weak, just open, willing to forgive what should have been confronted, willing to carry weight that wasn't mine. Now, I still believe in love, but not blind love. Not the kind that gives and gives while the other person is busy taking. I believe in peace, but I also believe in lines, in boundaries, in walking away with your dignity intact, even if it means walking alone. Ava says I seem calmer now. She says, "You don't overthink things anymore, Dad." And she's right. Because I've already seen the worst of what love can turn into, and I survived it without becoming what broke me. So no, I'm not who I was, but I'm more of myself than I've ever been. Quiet, clear, and unshakable. There was a picture frame, black wood, slight chip on the corner. It used to sit on our living room shelf, right above the fireplace. It held one photo, a moment frozen in sunlight. Me, Celeste, and Ava, smiling like the world couldn't touch us. I remember the day we took it. Backyard barbecue. Ava had ketchup on her chin. Celeste leaned into me like we still believed in forever. And me? I thought I'd finally built the kind of life I never had growing up. After everything happened, I found that frame tucked under a pile of old coats in the hallway closet. She didn't take it, didn't destroy it. She just left it behind, like a receipt for a life she no longer wanted to claim. I almost threw it out. Almost. But something stopped me. I cleaned the dust off the glass and placed it in the back of my workshop. Not to remember her, but to remember who I was when I still believed people stayed. That photo didn't represent love anymore. It represented labor, loyalty, a season of my life where I gave everything I had, even when it wasn't seen. And every time I walk past it, I don't feel bitterness. I feel proof that I was real, that I loved deeply, and that I built something solid, even if it was only me who stayed standing. These days life's quiet. Mornings start with coffee on the porch. Ava's off chasing her next chapter, and I finally sleep through the night. The house feels like mine again, not just on paper, but in spirit, in silence. Most of her things are gone now. What's left is boxed up in the garage, waiting to be claimed or forgotten. Some nights I still hear the echo of old conversations, laughter bouncing off empty walls, the kind of memories that don't ask permission to visit. And just when I thought it was over, when I thought peace had finally settled in like dust on an unused shelf, a letter arrived, no return address, no message inside, just a folded photo, the same one from that black frame, but this time, torn clean down the middle, my half missing. I don't know what she meant by it, or why she sent it. But here's what I do know. Some people leave your life. Others wait in the dark, thinking they can come back when the lights are on again. But not this time, because the door she walked out of no longer exists. Sometimes I ask myself, was I wrong to protect what was mine? Was it too much, too cold, too calculated? Could I have just let her go quietly, signed the papers, watched them play house in the life I built? Would that have made me the better man? But here's the thing. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making her hurt the way I did. It was about dignity, about not fading into the background while someone rewrote the story with my ink. I didn't strike back out of rage. I acted out of clarity, because sometimes the only way to reclaim your peace is to take back what someone thought you'd never defend. So was I wrong? Maybe, maybe not. But I sleep well, and I look my daughter in the eye without flinching. And if protecting my name, my home, my worth makes me the villain in someone else's version of the story, then I'll wear that role like armor, because silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it's just the sound of a man refusing to disappear. They thought I'd crumble, thought I'd crawl away, head down, that I'd stay the man who gave and gave, even when there was nothing left for me. They thought I'd do nothing, but I just waited until they handed me the rope and pulled. I didn't push, didn't scream. I simply stepped aside and let the weight of their choices finish what they started. If you've ever been left standing in silence, if your loyalty was mistaken for weakness, and your patience used as a weapon against you, this space is yours. Here we don't beg. We remember, we rebuild, and when the time is right, we rise. Subscribe to Betrayal HQ. For every man who was told to move on before he even had a chance to speak. This is where your story gets heard. Let me ask you something. If someone ripped your soul out in front of a crowd, would you fight back right there? Or would you let silence carry your justice to the door? Would you have let them walk away with your memories, your name on the deed, your place at the table you built with your own hands? What would you do if the same people you sacrificed for turned around and fed their love to someone else while you sat there starving in plain sight? Would you scream? Would you crumble? Or would you sit in your truck, hands on the match heel, and start planning your peace? Because this story, it's not just mine. It's for every man who's been erased from his own life. For every father who gave everything and still got called not enough. For every silent soul who watched the people they protected rewrite the story without them. So what would you have done?